Know that any person wishing to speak must identify him or herself by name and address. There will be a time limit of 3 minutes per person, which can be extended by vote of the school committee. Discussion of individual personnel issues in all cases, as is always the case, is prohibited. Any individual's privilege of address may be terminated for any inappropriate conduct or statements. And the amount of the time allocated for this hearing is presently 30 minutes. However, this can also be extended by vote of the school committee if needed. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Stanton.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of feedback on the microphones.
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you to the school committee for all of your tireless efforts and extra meetings, long hours, coming up with what we believe is a budget proposal that meets the goals of the school committee, meets the goals of the school department, and certainly pushes forward on our hope to and our commitment to improving student achievement in the Southbridge Public Schools. I would like to also say thank you to the admin team who is here tonight. Thank you for your tireless efforts. Thank you for being here tonight again. And they are on hand to answer any questions that anyone has this evening. So we built this budget by developing our core values, and those are that every child has the right to every opportunity in every classroom every day to achieve their full potential, that each person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, and that integrity, personal responsibility, and professionalism define our expectations and our actions. I'm hearing myself. To those core values, we developed goals, and those are 3 goals around student achievement, curriculum assessment and professional development, and social, emotional, and behavioral supports. In terms of student achievement, we have a goal which aligns programming and resource allocation for special education subgroup to ensure high-quality instruction for every student and increased student achievement. We also have a goal for student achievement to align programming and resource allocation for the English language learner subgroup to ensure high-quality instruction for students and increase student achievement. In the area of curriculum assessment and professional development, our goal is to ensure development, review, and implementation of curriculum in all areas and reestablish the curriculum review cycle. In addition, our goal is to ensure implementation of professional development in critical areas of leadership, differentiated instruction, and tiered instruction. In the area of social, emotional, and behavioral support, our goals include providing fiscal resources for the development, implementation, and evaluation of social, emotional, and behavioral curricula. And lastly, our goal is to provide fiscal resources for the development of social, emotional, and behavioral supports for all students. So a little bit about the district. Our enrollment figures are here. For the 2014-2015 school year, we have approximately 2,262 students within our schools. This number does not include students who are in school choice. For the 2015-2016, we do have projected enrollments at 2,350 students, which is approximately 88 students more. And this is an important statistic. It's enrollment by ethnicity and also by our subgroup. And you can see that, in particular, our English language learner percent of district at 17.2% is about twice that of the state average. And also our students with disabilities at 20% is above the state average of 17.1%. I also bring that up because those are programs that have specific resource allocation needs associated with them, whether they are curricular, whether they technological, or also staffing in terms of personnel. A review of the student population in Southbridge shows a higher than state average population for English language learners, special education, and low income. So this is just another way to present the same information for those of you who are graphically oriented, and this is a way for us to differentiate our message for you. So in specific reference to our goal for student achievement for the special education subgroup and aligning programming and resource allocation for special education subgroup to ensure high quality instruction for every student and increase student achievement, again, these are our numbers. You can see that we have a increasing student population with respect to special education, and that it is significantly higher than the state average. Here you can see that on the bottom we have IEP enrollments in 2014 from September to December that have increased by 57. It will be the work of the special education department to tease apart those new students and to find ways to support those students. But that is a resource allocation that we have to be aware of. It is a requirement. I would also point out some increase is in our 2014 category data, specifically to our developmental program. That large increase is due to a program that's been brought back to the district, and we will talk in a little bit about cost avoidance and how that is beneficial to the district. But these are the numbers in general, the trends over the years of increasing numbers of special education students. So we use several strategies to control special education costs. These include legal update trainings for team chairs and school psychologists, guidance counselors, and school adjustment counselors. That's to ensure that we are following legislation regarding relative to special education. We are developing and enhancing specialized programs such as our PASS program, our ESP, and our SOAR program. Our independence plans and accountability systems for one-to-ones and ways in which we use our EAs effectively to support our special education students. We are constantly in a cycle of reassignment and staffing of all EAs to develop 2 new specialized programs with no fiscal impact. We have 1 special education teacher added to the high school through the reallocation of teachers based on service delivery and caseload analysis with no fiscal impact this year. Also, we have had a reassignment of SLPs for more effective coverage this year, and a review of the contracts and IEPs to improve accountability and control costs. I mention these things because although we are actively pursuing cost avoidance techniques and actively using strategies to control special education costs, there is no doubt that an increase of 57 IEPs to the district and an increase in specialized programs does add to the cost and to the budget, and we do need to be aware of that as we prepare for budget proposal. So, in terms of the specialized programs that we have created, there are some slides here. I don't think I need to go through them all with you, but what you see in red in the bottom of each of those slides are the cost avoidance totals for each of the programs. And we had this discussion maybe a month or so ago about how that's not actual physical dollars in our hands. But what we do with cost avoidance is take that expenditure that would be going out if we did not have these specialized programs in district, and we can allocate those funds for other purposes. And those other purposes include things like transportation. So for example, when we have a 3% increase in transportation and our town allocation for increased budget is only 2.5%, that 0.5% has to come from somewhere. So when we do cost avoidance strategies in special education or in our other programming, we can grab those pockets of money and pool them into places so that we can make up a differential for increases that are planned for, that we know about, but aren't budgeted. We also use it to cover salary, utility costs, and reduce or eliminated grant funding such as RTTT. So if I may, the total of the cost of the cost avoidance was $810,693. So that is a sum of money that we're able to put in other places that we, again, aren't allocated for. So under our AIP, I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here. The AIP is our Accelerated Improvement Plan. There is a specific goal for special education, and we do have now and have developed with input from teachers, with input from administrators, with input from the department chairs, from our team chairs, and from our directors and supervisors, 4 initiatives. And these are all around improving the achievement gaps for special education students and to improve programming. And so relative to the requests for that, what we are asking for are the following. It's 2 teachers at ERS. Eastford Road School has no special education teachers, yet bears a strong, heavy burden of early intervention for students on IEPs. At Charlton Street, we're asking for a teacher, and at Southbridge, SMHS, we're asking for a teacher as well. Then we're also asking for EAs, 2 at Eastford Road, 1 at Charlton Street School, and 2 at West Street, and then 4 at the high school to alleviate, middle school, high school, to alleviate some coverage in inclusion classes and our special programming. We've had a pretty healthy discussion over the past few weeks about the substitute EAs. Those were not in the budget, although they were discussed and posted. And we do need to hire those positions, but they do need to be allocated in the budget this year. And then we are also in desperate need of a team chair at the high school. We are going to come under a coordinated program review, and that is a compliance exercise for whether or not we are in compliance with our IEPs. And so a team chair will allow us to manage the heavy caseload that's there more effectively, arrange for meetings with parents, reschedule meetings, those types of activities, so that that duty does not fall to the teachers, and so teachers are free to instruct and be with their students while a team chair is organizing the meetings and making sure that we're meeting deadlines. It's probably, I don't know if the committee wants to stop along the way at each of the goals and ask questions, or if you want me to just go right through? Okay. All right. So for student achievement goal for our English language learner subgroup population, I won't read you the goal. What I do want to point out here is that we do have an increasing ELL population, starting with 9.6% of the district in 2010. Currently, it's not currently, last year it was 12.7%. One of our goals for the ELL improvement plan, which we'll talk about in a little bit, was to properly identify students. So you are going to see, as the result of input and oversight by our IRS, our ELL, our English Language Learner Instructional Resource Specialist, proper identification of students, a proper placement of students in our levels, whether they're level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and also students that are exiting. I will point out again that we are well over the state average for our ELL subgroup population. This you have in front of you is the Charlton Street School ELL levels. So the numbers of students in each of the grade levels down the left, and the WIDA level that they perform at across the top. So there are 79 students in total at Charlton Street School, and 4 have exited this year. We are looking to increase that number and get students out of level 3 and 4, and we're going to talk a little bit about why we think that may not be happening. And here's West Street School, again, same information, with 84 students at West Street School and 2 students exiting. And then SMHS. 75 students at the middle school and 65 at the high school. A grave concern of ours at the district level is the staffing history of the ELL program. In 2011, there was a director, there were 6 teachers, there was no IRS, no department chair, but there were 13 EAs, or paraprofessionals, and there were 5 tutors. That programming continued in 2012 and 2013. However, in 2013-2014 school year, the director position was eliminated. We maintained 6 teachers. We included 1 department chair. However, we eliminated the student support of EAs and tutors. And this year, we have added a teacher. We have added an IRS. But I think the point that needs to be made here for this subgroup population is that level 1 and level 2 students should be receiving a minimum, based on the DESE recommendation, of direct instruction in English. They should be receiving 2.5 hours of pull-out instruction by an ELL licensed teacher. And if you do the numbers, what this means is that 161 students in 11 different grades should be receiving 2.5 hours of instruction. And we only have 7 teachers providing that instruction. What that also means is that our level 3 and level 4 students, which have a requirement from DESE to be provided direct support, frankly are receiving none. And that's a disservice. It's a disproportionate amount of burden for those students to carry, and I stand before you and say that absolutely needs to be addressed in the budget as we move forward. I talked a little bit about the improvement plan, so in addition to identifying students and placing them in the proper levels so that we can move students through the ELL program effectively so that they can be successful in our mainstream curriculum, we have also goals around implementing practice for administrators to observe SEI instruction in mainstream courses, and also professional development needs for our general education teachers to implement SEI strategies for our ELL students, and also the development of a full curriculum for ELL. That is under creation right now, but it will need a cycle of review over the summer, and then revision once it's implemented fully next year. So our requests for this particular subgroup and student achievement is that we are asking for the teachers at Eastford Road School, 1, a half teacher for Charlton, a half teacher for West Street, and then 2 full teachers for the middle school, high school. In addition, we are asking for the EAs so that we can support our level 3s and 4 students, and that is again 1 at Eastford Road, 2 at Charlton, 2 at West Street, and 3 at the middle school, high school. We're also asking for that curriculum review cycle funding, and we are also asking for the coordinator. That is a position that is essential to ensure that our IRS is able to do the oversight of classroom, not the oversight, but the support of instruction with teachers. The IRS really should be a coach in the classroom, and unfortunately right now we are using that position as compliance. Are we getting kids tested on time? Are they scheduled? Are they in the right levels? So the professional development and our ability to improve instruction is minimalized because of how we're using that position. So the total for that goal is $512,000 approximately. Whoops. So for curriculum assessment and professional development, there are 2 main goals here. One is to ensure development, review, and implementation of curriculum in all areas and reestablish the curriculum review cycle. And then the second is to ensure implementation of professional development in critical areas of leadership, differentiation, and tiered instruction. So under our AIP, we do have some requirements. One is that we are a turnaround district. that requires a substantial amount of time, talent, energy, and resources. And much of that work is defined by our effective implementation of the Accelerated Improvement Plan. So originally, the curriculum work was funded by Race to the Top funds, which have now been phased out, and that is appropriate. But it does leave us to continue our AIP work, our projects, our assessment systems, and our tiered instruction, and to find the ways to fund those sustainably over time. These are programs that are essential conditions of effective schools and effective districts. We have just beginning those systems. We are starting to analyze and evaluate those systems, but we do need the sustainable resources and the funding to continue that work. So what this is saying is that the grant-funded part of our AIP, in terms of our professional staff stipends, our contracted services for focus on results, our assessment system for achievement network, milepost, RBT, our instructional supplies, and the travel associated with the professional development had come under Race to the Top at approximately $293,602. That funding is no longer in play, and we do have to find ways to continue the work, and not only continue to work, but to deepen the work and broaden the work at the same time. And one of the things that we are facing under curriculum and assessment is a NEASC accreditation, in addition to the work that we had started under Race to the Top. So what we are looking at now is an increase for a total cost of $366,956. So that is funding that had previously come from Race to the Top that we are faced with finding sustainable allocation for. So, briefly, because I do believe we're a little bit tight on time, the teacher part of this is really the reference to our tiered instruction program. The need of our curriculum to be implemented in a tiered instruction model where our struggling students are receiving more instruction, more time on learning skills in smaller groups with more intensity. That is a teacher-rich environment. So in the general core, perhaps 25 students in a classroom, 20 of those students with high-quality instruction flow through the curriculum with minimal struggle. But for the 5 students who struggle, instead of waiting for them to fail and see, well, is there a problem? Is there a special education need? Is there an ELL need? Instead of waiting for that to happen, the idea with tiered instruction is to bring those students together in a small group for Tier 2 of 6 to 10 students with a teacher for more time on learning so that they can make up the growth that they need to stay on grade level. So it's an intervention model as opposed to a wait and fail model. But again, it takes teachers, it takes staff, and it does take curriculum as well. I think it's the recreation meeting. So what we are asking for ERS, Eastford Road School, is 1.5 intervention teachers. There's some really excellent data coming out of Eastford Road School with regards to this program and the effect that early intervention can have on students, keeping them at grade level, which if they are on grade level as kindergarten students and they can carry that success through first grade, second grade, third grade, then we have students who can be successful moving forward. We're looking for the 1 teacher at Charlton Street School, and then in a creative way to support students using part-time, perhaps retired teachers to come back and fill those intervention programs, those intervention slots, because they are small groups of students. They don't have to be all day, and that's where some of our retired teachers who are outstanding professionals can come back and still sort of keep their hands in the pot of helping our students achieve. So at the middle school, high school, under teachers, we are looking for an IRS and testing coordinator to help with our identification of students and then the placement of students into tiered instruction groups with appropriate resources. We are looking for the PD to continue. At the district level, that is our funding for our leadership trainings with focus on results and our quarterly reports. You've noticed how well received that is by the state and also by our leadership team. There's coaching involved with that, and it really is about ensuring that the work of our AIP is impacting instruction in classrooms. We are also looking at the technology and a director need. We are looking for the director of instructional technology to sort of, to bridge and bring together all of the technology pieces for instruction. That would include tiered instruction. It includes textbooks that have become to go digital. It also includes our smart boards and our Elmos and all of the technology that's available to teachers to impact instruction. There's some other issues with technology. We're looking for the iPads and library books for Eastford Road School, and also the Navient software at the high school, which will allow our guidance counselors to more appropriately track students. So, we do have a social emotional.
If I can just interrupt you, it is almost 7 o'clock, so I just want to ask if there's anybody from the public who has a question or a comment for the superintendent relative to the budget. If not, this committee can decide to allow Ms. Stanton to continue, or we begin our regular school committee meeting and she could pick up during that portion. I leave it up to the committee.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the next section that the superintendent is getting to is so vital
Yes, I agree.
that I believe we need to continue. Why don't we set a 15-minute time limit and start our regular meeting at 7:15. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
We were not going to take any votes during the meeting.
So
If I will extend the hearing till 7:15.
Okay.
To allow you to finish this, because I agree that it's very critical.
Okay. So the fourth goal that we have talked about as a school committee and a school department is the social, emotional, and behavioral support goal. And that is to develop and provide fiscal resources for the development, implementation, and evaluation of our social, emotional, and behavioral curricula. In addition, to provide fiscal resources for the development of social, emotional, and behavioral supports for all students. So much like what we had just discussed regarding our academic supports, we realize that our students come and many of them need more than the general student, the average student. They need more support. They're coming from what we know to be trauma backgrounds, and that requires additional support. Things like check-in, check-out for students, multiple support small group work. All of that is labor-intensive, it's teacher-intensive, but it does ensure that our students have the opportunity to receive the support so that they are not only growing academically, but they are growing socially and emotionally as well. And that has become a big piece of what schools do. And I think that there's an argument sometimes that that's not what schools should do. But if students don't feel safe and they have not developed strategies to cope, to handle conflict, then they can't be as successful as they need to be academically. So I won't go through this, but it is data related to the amount of referrals and our request for the resources associated with social, emotional, and behavioral interventions for the elementary school, and then also for the middle school, high school. But I do want to go over the Wellness Advisory Committee and their hard work and thank those people publicly right now for that work. They were able to administer the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and as a result of that survey, we recognize that our students do have struggles beyond what maybe we think they do. For example, 32.3% of middle school students reported symptoms of depression, 13.6% had attempted suicide, 30.2% of high school students reported symptoms of depression, and 13.4% reported suicide attempts.
Excuse me, Madam Superintendent. That refers to our own students, correct?
Our own students.
Not
Correct.
just out there, but our own. Thank you.
So as you know, students who come to us with depression, students who come to us with trauma, they need more support from us. We recognize this, and the requests that we're making with regards to that are directly related to the data that you see for data like this from not only the risk behavior survey, but also from our guidance counselors, our adjustment counselors, our classroom teachers, who recognize that students need a skill set, they need strategies, and they need support around dealing with the issues that they're facing. So the requests here, again, are personnel rich. They are teachers at Eastford Road School, 1.5 at the elementary school, Charlton Street, 1.5 for West Street, and then 2 for the middle high school. Clearly, it is a need that we recognize that if these students are supported, our teachers are able to do more of the academic instruction for students if these students are supported in ways that help develop that part of them that help them be successful. The total of that, we're also looking for a district-wide curriculum for that. So the total of that is $406,000. So this is a list of additional district resources that were requests that were either not budgeted for some reason over the past year, or were underfunded for some reason. So we are trying, with the efforts of Director of Finance, Mr. Osborne, trying to rectify that so that our budget accurately reflects what is actually needed in each of the line items. I think for the first time in a long time, we have positional control, meaning we know each and every staff member, where they are associated with schools, their salaries are associated with them. So when we introduce that in the fall to our principals, there should not be the questions that we had this year around, gee, I don't have this person. And then trying to figure out, how is this in the budget then, and trying to backtrack. So admittedly, there are some errors there in the past that we're trying to correct, but positional control is essential in determining a budget request and the need for additional teachers in the budget. Additional things, the instructional supplies is a little bit of a quirky thing. It really is just related to copier and toner requests. NEASC, as I said, is a request that's a requirement. In addition, we have the superintendent search, and I believe tonight we have MASC here to do that. And then we have some principal training and parent liaison. So, to the meat of it, I think. We have heard a little bit, well, probably more than a little bit, that there's a concern that central office is fat. I don't believe we're fat. I believe we're effective. In 2010, district leadership was comprised of 10 central office administrators. Right now, we have 5. I think it's important for the town to understand that number, because I'm not exactly sure where that reference or rumor comes from, but it's clearly inaccurate. This is net school spending and achievement. There has been a lot of discussion in the town about net school spending and achievement. There has been a lot of comparisons to us to other districts that are nothing like us. When you compare students and demographics and districts, we have to be careful that we compare apples and apples. So, for example, if we are looking to improve from a level 4 district, we have to be sure that we are comparing student demographics that are similar. And I think I have a better slide. Oops. So when we look at schools who are achieving and schools that are trying to rise above and out of level 4 status, what is not here is the Salem School District, which is currently spending 22% over net school spending in an effort to move out of level 4 status. Salem is a school district that, like Southbridge, has high needs, high levels of poverty, high levels of ELL students, and high levels of special education students. Lawrence is a second district, again, trying to rise out of level 4 and using net school spending as a means to that. Sure.
Can we get a camera on this
Yep.
slide?
Can we get a camera on the slide that,
It's the 39th slide, if that's helpful. I don't know. Is that it?
Yes, the 39th slide.
39th slide.
so as you can see, Southbridge as a level 4 district is spending $13,366 per pupil. If you look at Salem as a level 4 district, they're spending $73 per pupil. If I may go back, I think it's important to understand that in the Southbridge Public Schools, there has been a decline since 2009 in net school spending, which is the reverse of districts that are working hard, working together, collaborating to discover and understand ways for sustainable funding to move the district out of level 4 status. In 2009, Southbridge was 14.3% above net school spending. In 2014, we are 3.5%. In the big picture history, I talked about this at the EHS meeting. It appears that in the Southbridge, in the town of Southbridge, when there is a net school spending increase, when there's a foundational increase from the state, Southbridge reduces its net school spending. That's an issue that we as a town, as a school department, as a town council, need to come to terms with, need to understand, because we are doing what we need to do in terms of assessing our resources, looking for ways to capture and be more efficient. 2% isn't even enough to open the door. 2% means we lose staff. 2% means a percent of our budget goes to a 3% transportation increase. I think it's pretty clear in the last line. In 2012, the town dollar per student was $2,481.86. In 2016, the proposal is for the expenditure on the town side to be $2,449. It's less. And yet we're charged with bringing this district out of level 4 status with a high needs population and student demographic. Our total request to meet each of these goals And I want to be clear here. We were looking for 2.64% increase for level service. Level service is put the key in the door, turn it, and you get to walk in exactly as you did this year. So that covers the most of our cost of living, salary, increases to utilities. That's level service. Right now, what we're asking for is a budget to meet our goals. That results in $2,453,554. That is to meet the goals of our school district and of our school committee. That's not to say that we haven't looked at reductions. We've looked at reductions that total $577,000. Our total recommended town appropriation for the budget this year is a recommended increase of $3,023,361, which represents an 11.9% increase. The total of that would be $28,255,846. If we want to move this district, there has to be a commitment to the sustainable funding to create, implement, analyze the systems that need to be in place for our students, particularly our subgroups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Abrahamson?
Would it be safe to say, to put it plainly, as the needs of our students have increased dramatically, the finances allotted to deal with them effectively have decreased? We're being asked to work for a much more difficult job for less money each year. And as a result, that 28 million, if we don't meet that, then that will be even more and more and more. We will be farther and farther away from meeting the needs of our students unless we can somehow deal with this gap.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the school committee relative to this budget? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed, and I will ask the cable access folks if they need time to prepare for the next meeting, or if we can roll into the regular school committee meeting. Just give me 1 second. Nice job. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Again, good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge School Committee meeting. We are starting a little bit delayed due to the public hearing on the fiscal year 16 budget. I'd like everybody to take a moment and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order at 7:16 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Condon? Present. Mr. Olivo?
Present.
Dr. Page?
Present.
Mrs. Donovan? Present. Mrs. Quinney? Present. Mr. Abrahamson?
Present.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Present.
All present.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda this evening. Oh, I'm sorry, public input. Is there any input from anybody? Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the school committee as part of public input this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Thank you for that. Approval of the consent agenda. This evening, there are 2 items on the consent agenda: the regular school committee meeting minutes of March 24th, 2015, and the committee of the whole meeting minutes March 18th, 2015. Does any member wish to have any item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none and without objection, the consent agenda will be adopted. Under Chairperson's announcements, I am we have a busy agenda since we started late. I'm just going to continue on, maybe to address something later on. So we're moving now to agenda item number 6, which is presentations. So this evening, we have presentations, certificates of appreciation for some football equipment donations. We're pleased to be joined tonight by Mr. Frank Kumanellis. Would you like to speak to those, or do you want me to speak to those? Okay. Do you have the receipt?
Can I just read?
Thank you for being here. Yep. If you'd like to speak.
Yeah, just for a couple
Sure.
of minutes. On behalf of the Southbridge High School Administration, Athletic Department, and Football Program, I would like to thank the following organizations and individuals for their generous gifts to the varsity football program. 16 pairs of game pants for a total of $920 from Tri-State Toyota from Dudley, owners Peter Kraus and James Trapari. A blocking cut dummy, 6 blocking dummies, and 5 game shirts for a total of $1,376 from South County Football Camp, and that's the camp that we've been running, Southbridge High School has been running for the past 16 years or so. Our helmet numbers and decals and stripes total $351. This year were donated by Joe Athanas, Nick Billis, and John Lango. They're all former Southbridge residents, and they went to Southbridge High School. And it's individuals like these that help the program every year and help us defray the cost of some of the equipment. And again, I conclude with a heartfelt thank you to all these gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Kumanellis. The superintendent has some certificates of appreciation.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if anybody else is here with you this evening. If you
No,
want
I'm
us to ensure that those get to them, or if
Yep.
you're going to see these
No,
gentlemen.
I will make sure that they get delivered. Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much. And next this evening, we have the Executive Director from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, Mr. Glenn Kuchar. Dorothy Presser was unable to join us this evening, but I have a sense that Mr. Kuchar will just handle himself fine. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Kuchar. We've invited you here this evening. As you know, we have an acting superintendent situation. For the public's benefit, the Southbridge School Committee belongs to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. We pay dues to belong to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. They offer many services to school districts to help support them. We've participated in the district governance project. Ms. Presser's been very helpful in that. And the Massachusetts Association of School Committees also conducts, or helps district conduct superintendent searches, and that's why we've asked you to be here this evening, to discuss what you offer and probably to advise this group on how to move forward. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I did provide for the members a copy of something called a vacancy in the superintendency, which is something that helps guide school committees through the process of assessing what they need to do and looking at some of the steps that are involved in seeking a permanent superintendency. I'd be happy to respond to any questions regarding that, but I would tell you that in doing this, you want to think about things like timelines, perceptions, issues, and what's in the best interest of the district. And the first thing that we ask a district to think about is, why is there a vacancy? And as you well know, the history of the superintendency of the last 3 years has been rather turbulent. That's going to scare people away. This district has a rough history with the superintendency of recent note. You have the Department of Education having you in level 4 status, looking over your shoulders. In some of our communities, I hate to be as sarcastic and cynical as I can be about the department, but my sense is that they are drooling over the possibilities of putting districts into receivership and taking them over. And you don't want to be in a position where the department decides to consider receivership as they are considering for Holyoke, as they've done in Lawrence, as they may do in other districts. As your superintendent explained, there are a lot of reasons that districts are in level 4, and many of them have nothing to do with the good work of the faculty. Many of those status outcomes have a lot to do with high-risk student populations, economics, what the business climate has done to certain communities, and you're going to need to work your way out of that. Candidates for the superintendency at this part of the year are few and far between because most of the searches are concluded, and the ones that are getting started to be put in place next year, hoping to have someone in the position by June. So I would certainly suggest that you not seriously consider immediately kicking off a superintendent search at a time, as I said, when there are not many candidates and when not many people are paying attention to the numbers of vacancies that are out at this time of the year. I just returned from the meeting of the National Alliance of Superintendent Searchers, where we are the Massachusetts representatives. This is a consistent theme around the country, but it's more pronounced in Massachusetts. As you may have figured out, the regulatory climate for schools in Massachusetts is as rancid as it can be anywhere in the country. And that's in a state with the highest performing students in the country and often the world. The regulatory climate is just so rancid and so hostile that a lot of people don't want to do this work. Fortunately, there are a lot of people native to Massachusetts and a lot of people familiar with the Northeast who are used to working in a hostile regulatory climate, joining their friends in the healthcare field and most other businesses that are regulated heavily because it's in the nature of the state to do that. But no one is as heavily regulated and as hostilely regulated as public schools. People are reluctant to do it, and they're reluctant to do it especially in districts that may be vulnerable to action by the state. And my recommendation to you would be to think very carefully about when you would be starting the search if you were going to start one, whether you would consider seriously a year or two delay in order to provide administrative stability to your district. You do have an interim superintendency. The interim superintendency is doing well to begin to stabilize the situation in the district. I think the interim superintendency will help keep the wolves at bay and allow you to take control of your own destiny. That said, when you are ready to pursue the search process, there are a lot of options available to you. For our member districts, we provide extensive services without cost if the district wanted to play a larger role in managing its own process. We find that most of the people who want to be superintendents find the districts by going to the websites of the state school committees or school boards and superintendents. Just about everybody who was named as a finalist in any Massachusetts search came to that search by looking at the websites and seeing that what's open in Massachusetts are the following communities. There are people in Massachusetts who have ambitions to fill the superintendency. There are some people outside of Massachusetts who are eager to return home, or where the other adults in the household are eager to return or come back to the East. People who are not daunted by snow, people who are not daunted by cold. There's a stunning number of people are terrified of snow. You just have to get out of the Northeast in order to understand that. Such sympathy extended to us from everybody else in the country, and we're just, yeah, we had 9 feet of snow, but we shoveled it and we got by, and now it's gone and we'll move on. They are afraid of coming into the regulatory climate because in Massachusetts, even schools that do well are often technically in failure because of the way the regulatory system is set up. Frankly, I think Southbridge would probably be a decently performing school district in most other states. but you've got a level 4 status because of the way the system is set up and because of your because of the demographic challenges that you struggle to serve as you try to serve all children in your district and serve them well. And I think the faculty deserves a lot of credit for fighting every day, and the administrators for fighting every day for the kids in Southbridge, as does the school committee as you try to do that. So as I say, there are extensive services that we can provide without fee to you if you want to manage your own search. We do search consulting services for a fee, as do many others. I've given you information about who all those people are nationally, and you could come and talk to them, and I'm sure they'd all like to take your money, and I'm sure they'd all like to sell you their recruiting lists and help you find a superintendent. So, I mean, that's a general overview, but I did want to preface my remarks by saying to you that this district needs to have the perception of stability and the continued progress of turnaround that would bring you a good flock of candidates. And that is not to suggest for a moment that there isn't or that there aren't able, qualified, and very good candidates here, nearby. We pass no aspersions on the wonderful people who do interim superintendent work and help the districts turn around and do so quite successfully. But only you know what's best for Southbridge and what the best options may be. And as I said before, if you have some measure of stability in your interim situation, my recommendation to you is not to move too quickly, but to allow a sense of stability to be acquired.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kuchar? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Kuchar, thank you for coming. I guess just a general question. You talked about, or based on what you said, as far as the timing now really isn't good because a lot of the searches have closed and there's not a great pool out there. In your opinion, what is the ideal timeline of searches to begin and end so that we fall in that window?
This year, the absolute top cream of the crop of candidates were all selected at or around Thanksgiving time to January 1st.
And these selected candidates will begin their new jobs in the fall of 2015? Oh, in July, okay.
So they'll
Okay.
take their positions in 3 months. People got their searches going.
So they were selected at that time between
They were
November and January. So
selected
therefore,
and-
the search, you have to back up from that, obviously.
So they started their searches in September and October, moved quickly, but with enough time to engage the community. They were all able to have community focus groups or community surveys that allowed people to have input into the process. It was time to organize search committees so that they could do the initial screening and interviews in the appropriate confidential setting that helps you do that. And they moved forward.
Okay, thank you. Second question I had was relative to MASC services. You said you provide services for fees and some things not for fees. Can you give us an estimate of if you were to do it soup to nuts, what we would be looking at for a cost if we were to partake in that?
The cost would be if you add, depends on whether you advertise, and depends on whether you print or move exclusively on an online basis. But with advertising and print material and mailing, probably you're looking at a maximum of $12,000 at the bottom end and $30,000 to $40,000 at the higher end, depending upon what you use. But our search consulting fee is $9,500. It is the lowest, but it's low because it's subsidized by the membership and by their dues. So you've been paying dues to our association for almost 70 years. It's not like you're getting a bargain basement service. It's that you're getting something that every year you sort of pay a little bit towards so you can use it if you need it.
Okay, so is it up to the school committee to determine whether or not they want to advertise locally versus going
Yeah.
nationally?
All of the key decisions in a search should be made by the school committee or its designee. So, for example, some districts create an online brochure, which can be sent out everywhere for nothing. Some wish to have it mailed to other districts. Some wish to advertise in media that people seeking the superintendency will often read. Education Week, for example, is a publication that people read. Usually there's something in the immediate local media because members of your community need to know that you're looking, and they need to have some sense of confidence in the process. Not everyone advertises, but pretty much everybody develops online promotional material. And as I said, we do that without charge to any member district that wants to use that service. Online posting on the websites of the school committee and superintendents associations is routine. We do that for all of our districts, just upon request, and that's there's no charge for that service. The most of the fees that are earned go to the outreach to candidates, the organization of the search committee, the presence during the interviews, and being here for all different phases of the search process, not because you need to be watched, but because school committees like to have somebody around all the time who's able to help them do that. If we're doing a technical assistance service for you, we're often at the other end of the phone rather than on site.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Kuchar.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with questions for Mr. Kuchar?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
In hearing what Mr. Kuchar said, I would ask you to recall how many search search firms that you contacted, and what those responses have been, because I think he talks about the difficulty of this area and this time. So what were those? Not specifically which companies, but
Yep.
I think there were 5.
I contacted 5. 2 declined to submit a proposal. 1 never responded. MASC was among the first to jump in and say they would help us out. And we do have one other company that is interested. And I'll speak to
Possibly
that later,
interested.
possibly, yes.
So it's not exactly wide open there.
Right.
Thank you.
I do think we live in a difficult community. When I went to the Mass Association of School Committees meetings in November, I had an opportunity to speak with many superintendents, and when I told them where I was from, they said, "Oh, you're a superintendent killer." That may not be accurate. That's the perception that's out there in the community, given the, recent happenings in the district. I think we have to be honest with that. I think I'm not saying anything that people aren't aware of. And I think the state has also been honest about creating a stable situation here in the district. But we had initially received a lot of kind of pressure from the public, who is clamoring for us to do a search and get this process going. And I understand that to a degree, but I also personally disagree that, you need to do this in a thoughtful, calm, rational way, as opposed to being reactionary. So I appreciate those comments that you made. Yes.
Just one more thing. There is a history, as you say, of some people in town wanting to substitute their wisdom in terms of a search and that sort of thing. But we have someone here who has done this, who does this. And we can either accept the expertise of a person who does it, or the impression of those people who think it would be a neat thing to do. So I think that's important to show. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Kuchar. Thank you again for coming. A question that I would pose to you is, could you speak to how effectively MASC has conducted searches, gotten people in place, and then how have those people lasted? Has there been a consistent, stable leadership after it's been established, historically?
We've been pretty fortunate placing people who have been successful. When the searches actually are completed, in the last 3 years, I've had to do 3 of them over because they were unable to find candidates that were acceptable. And that happens if you cast the net and you don't capture people that you want, you should not accept whatever's left over. So we've restarted 3 of them successfully. I mean, I did personally. Most of our superintendents have stayed and have been successful. Most of the superintendents who leave because they're retiring. I mean, it's something else you want to be mindful of. I don't think you want to be doing this again in 3 years or 4 years. I think you'd like someone who would make a commitment to this district and would stay for a significant period of time. And as you're doing that, you want to scrutinize your candidates very carefully to make sure that they're not just looking for a superintendency, but they're looking for your superintendency. And that's where a lot of districts make a mistake. Sometimes people will try to settle for the warm body that's left standing, and they invariably end up paying for it. We discourage them from doing that.
Thank you. And to build on that, speaking to our superintendency and your knowledge and history of the perception that is out there regarding Southbridge, what would you say are things that you would advise us as a committee we should be looking for in our superintendency? Clearly, we know the district best.
I think you want to look for a superintendent who has some measure of success in achieving growth in student achievement. In other words, get someone or find someone or uncover, identify someone who actually understands what has to happen in schools and what kind of leadership is required in order to generate success. Now, you may well be on the road at this time to achieving that success. So this would not be a time to disrupt that progress. There are a lot of districts, by the way, that do short-term contracts with superintendents and sort of audition them, or do extensive searches internally or in the nearby markets and just see what they can find as well. I wouldn't discourage you from just taking plenty of time to see whether you're not able to at least continue. I mean, from the presentation that I was seeing here, it's very clear that you have a handle on the challenges that you confront. What you need to do now is to deploy an action strategy that will help you to make that movement forward. Now, you may have the capacity to do that right now. You may, at some point, look for someone who has successfully turned a district around, but I would warn you, there's a lot more than just numbers. There are people out there who specialize in taking students who are 218 on the MCAS and pushing them up to 221 and declaring victory, or taking students who are 238 and 239 and pushing them over the threshold to make the numbers look good, or putting pressure on the high school faculties to improve your graduation rates, or doing things that you need to do to create the appearance of higher attendance. And they all declare victory, and some of them are getting a lot of publicity in Massachusetts at this time. But if you look deeply at the story behind the story, you'll see that that success may be built on a sheet of ice that's very thin. And you need to look very, very, very carefully at the people who will maybe claim that they're good at turning districts around. But you certainly want to do that. You want to look for people who are extremely good communicators. People who are good communicators rarely fail as superintendents. People who will get out into the community, know the community, and mobilize the community. People who understand the financial end as well as the academic end. There's nothing that used to make me wince as a former school committee member more than watching, at one time, we had a superintendent who couldn't count money but didn't let that stop him from making the presentations to the city council, and it was painful. Because, I mean, with all due respect, it's arithmetic. It's not trigonometry. It's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And, you know, some projections. You ought to be able to communicate that. And then there are personal qualities that people look for. Integrity, propensity to tell the truth all the time, willingness to work very hard, and willingness to demonstrate a great respect for your community. And we've had districts that have been in real trouble, that have turned themselves around fairly effectively. And sometimes it's the school committee and the superintendent working together. Sometimes the voters help you out. You get some new people who are skillful and able to help you grow and move past some of your previous history. And then every once in a while the voters trip you up too. So you've got to be very careful about. I mean, the members of the community need to be very well alerted by the school committee to what they're doing and how effectively they're doing it, and how they need to think about whatever leadership they select locally. And the last thing in the world you want is the Commissioner of Education deciding whether or not your school committee should be constituted as it is, whether your district should be operating as it is, whether your local government should be changed involuntarily. And trust me, if there's an agency of state government that so regularly dreams about exceeding its authority, it is that one. See, I don't get any money from them. I don't have to worry about what I say.
Just in my last question would be, how would you describe Southbridge as a community and a school district to a potential superintendency candidate?
Well, if we were representing the district looking for a superintendent, we would say that this is a district that is in the process of turning itself around and has righted the ship and is attempting to move in the right direction. This is a district with a faculty that has demonstrated care, where the school committee is proficient and has experienced the district governance training and wants to do the right thing, and that this is a great opportunity to lead a district to success.
Thank you.
And that, by the way, is and we'd be telling them the truth. But the fact is that if someone has a choice of applying to a district that is not looking at well, everyone, no one's got great finances except maybe Cambridge because of the tax base, but or some of the wealthy communities out around 128, 495. But if you were to look at other communities that have been through this. As the wizard said, they don't have anything that you don't have, but maybe they had some better luck, maybe they had an opportunity and that you're now given at this moment, and that you would be ready to move ahead. But I just tell you, I would take my time and see where I was going. I would also tell you that the law gives the school committee very broad discretion about what it may do. I say this with some measure of levity, but also truth. You've called a school committee meeting tonight to talk about the superintendency. You could make me the superintendent tonight if you wanted to. That's the authority that you have.
Congratulations.
Talk about political malpractice. But I mean, you have that discretion. So many school committees, just the key is to proceed with confidence, but proceed in public and let the public see what you're doing. And our experience is that when the school committee is straight with the community trusts the school committee and values its judgment. So if you elected to postpone, if you elected to reassess 6 months from now or 5 months from now, if you elected to, if you decided that we're doing very well at this point, let's just keep this, let's try this for another year or two and see if it's working. If you do it in public, the public will follow your lead.
Thank you.
Mr. Olivo just wanted an opportunity to speak.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Kuchar, thank you for being here. I did just have one question. You made mention with a ballpark figure of $12,000 to $40,000 is what it takes to do a search through you guys.
No, that's with a consultant. With us, it would never be more than $12,000.
Okay. Did you give us an amount of what it would be roughly with you or with MASC?
What it would be with?
The amount to use you guys for a superintendent search.
Well, our fee is $9,500.
Okay.
If you use fee-based services. And then on top of the $9,500, there would be advertising, printing, postage, if you elected to use that.
Okay, now you also made mention that you had to reopen 3 searches.
Those are free.
Is that $9,500 or?
No, that fee doesn't recur.
Okay.
That fee is not paid until you have a superintendent with a signed contract. And if you don't like the field, and if you throw it out and start over again, that's all covered by the same. And by the way, anybody would do that.
Okay.
Except some of the fees are higher.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Condon?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Kuchar. Just a general question. I'm looking at the initial paperwork that you had given us from February 23rd, 2015. For general consultation during that initial visit, is there a fee for that? During the
General
initial
consultation for an initial visit like this?
No. A vision of the school committee as the assessment of the search
That's part of the
involvement?
process. That's part of the entire process. But if you were doing it with technical assistance, there would be no fee for that. In other words, if the district wanted to handle some of the administrative responsibility, I usually get dirty looks from the school board secretary when I say this, because a lot of those responsibilities often devolve to the school board secretary. But if you were to run the search yourselves with the resources that you had in the department, we could provide some of those services without cost.
And the only reason I ask that question is that assessment portion is, as a school committee, I don't think we've actually sat and talked about that, to come up with all of that, like our vision for the candidate, or just to kind of have those initial discussions to find out, what kind of longevity or process that we're looking at.
There are some things you can do initially to get a sense of where the community is coming from. For example, just as a member service without fee, we could create a community survey for you that people could respond to online, and we can aggregate that data and analyze it for you, and you can ask your community stakeholders any questions you'd like, including prioritizing their key outcomes, telling you what they'd like to see. We often do this with open response capacity, so people can spend some time articulating what it is they want you to know. If that's something that you wanted to do just to get the sense of where the community is, we would do that for any district that's in this position, and there would be no conditions on that. We can put the survey up, we can design it in collaboration with you. You can design it, tell us what you want to do, and see what the responses are.
Thank you. And that was my question, because I feel that right now, there's really no starting point. Like, this is the starting point for us to even kind of evaluate where we stand in regards to that, to finding the next superintendent or evaluating that at this point.
It might be a very good step to try to do a community assessment survey and see what the members of the community would like, and sort of segregate that data by faculty, business leaders, parents, students. Students are very, very, very effective survey responders because they know what they like, they know what they respect, and they know the difference. And they often bring fewer prejudices to the survey table than a lot of others do. It's why we recommend the presence sometimes of a student on the search committee, and we always recommend sitting down and talking to the students to get a sense of how they read the district and how they read the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would recommend that maybe we might be able to do that in conjunction with MASC.
We can talk about that when we get to the superintendent search portion. Dr. Page, do you have anything? Mr. Abrahamson?
Just one final question. You've done searches for a number of years, and as social media has advanced, we live in a toxic time, so that you might have candidates who will Google Southbridge Public Schools, and some of the fiercest criticisms come from our own people. How has that affected, and often anonymously, that sort of thing? How has that affected certain searches that you...
Google has made my life 5 times more difficult in doing superintendent searches, and I'll tell you why. I'm just theorizing that, have you been a principal? Okay. Chances are, if you've been a principal, you've suspended somebody from school, or expelled somebody from school, or counseled a teacher out of the profession, or given somebody a less than delightful evaluation. And chances are, those people are Googling you once a week to find out where you are, so they can make sure that any school committee that's considering you will know what an evil person you are. Now, in the meantime, we have people who become the centers of controversy, and you understand, because you're all public figures here, and the superintendent is a public figure, people can say essentially anything they want about you. And it can get printed on social media, get printed in the newspaper. It doesn't even have to be true in order to be protected free speech. So I might be doing reference checking on anybody and pull up your name, and there's going to be letters to the editor about some exaggerated allegation. My favorite case is the parents of the child who put a bottle of mouthwash in his pocket, and apparently between classes somebody took the bottle of mouthwash out and slipped a pint-sized hip bottle of vodka into his pocket. And between classes he went to gargle and didn't realize that it was with vodka, and that's why he was intoxicated during English class. In a school that had zero tolerance for the presence of alcohol in school. And for that young hockey player whose season ended early in his senior year, those parents were very unforgiving to the principal who didn't believe the alibi, who didn't believe the story. We have people who have done very courageous things with regard to discipline. with regard to zero tolerance, with regard to taking positions on controversial subjects, and find themselves getting beaten up in the local media or on social media. And all that stuff is out there. And when you do a search, when the factions take sides, again, the timeless struggle between the internal candidates and the external candidates, or the concern that sometimes members of the Teachers Association want to make sure that the next superintendent is union-friendly. So you'll find them Googling the collective bargaining history of the previous district and find out that indifferent teacher-hating superintendent they went to the bargaining team to support the school committee's position, not to give them a decent wage. And that rhetoric gets thrown out in the middle of a search. Again, I'm sort of drifting around here, but in summary, Google makes it very, very hard. And it's out there and it's forever. So we do a lot of training of search committees about being careful what you do. We advise school committees to sort of be cautious about the comments that you may make in public. You know, someone might say, I like candidate A, candidate B, Mr. Johnson, wasn't really strong in financing, and I was looking for somebody who's strong in financing, candidate C. And the next thing you know, for the rest of his life, candidate Johnson is labeled as not strong in financing. Right. Because I confused Johnson with Smith. Ruined his career. This stuff happens. And I say when the factions line up, people get hurt. And unfortunately, there's no way around it except to provide some measure of confidentiality for the initial round of candidates before they become finalists and expose themselves to not only to Google, but to the help of all those people who want to help you with your search, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you. One more question that just popped up. Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Kuchar. How would you recommend to a school committee to do a search in good faith with the notion of there could be that political machine working behind the scenes? You could have a search committee with members who are in it for the right reasons and looking for that ideal candidate, and however, when they come forward before the school committee with X number of candidates, if the school committee itself is politically motivated one way or another, that search could be for naught. And I don't know how would that potential, how could that potentially be avoided, if at all?
It can be problematic, so we try to have full and frank conversations with the school committee. But remember this, nobody in the United States of America who wants to be a superintendent is more than 2 degrees of separation away from Southbridge, Massachusetts. In other words, the superintendent in East Mayonnaise, Wyoming, who wants to be, who wants to be a superintendent and wants to come east because maybe the spouse is from central Massachusetts, is going to call the head of the Superintendent's Association in Wyoming and say, call Tom Scott, the Superintendent Association head in Massachusetts, or call Glenn, or call somebody that you know, and here's what we want to know about the community. Why is the superintendency vacant? Why did the last one leave? What are the finances like? What's the school committee, what's the school board like? And how is the community and the relationship with municipal government? And is there an internal candidate? Because if there's an internal candidate, people will be intimidated as well. There's just no way around that. And somebody is going to be thoroughly knowledgeable about what's happening, and 2 or 3 sources will tell them what's happening. So if there is a political undercurrent, that will often surface, and it can be damaging to a search. So you need to deal with that internally amongst yourselves. Now, there's always the possibility that people of good faith will favor an internal candidate versus an external candidate. And that happens, especially if you get people who have been in a district a long time and want to be the superintendency of the district. People understand that. But then sometimes there are issues that are undercurrents in districts that are harder to emerge, but they do emerge and they do become known to the candidates. There's no way to hide it. So you have to rely on the good faith of the school committee and the search committee. Search committee is actually as important as the school committee, because that's where stuff is done in confidence. And oftentimes the best candidates don't make it out of the search committee because certain factions inside the search committee don't want those people to move forward. And that's why we always tell school committees, when you're getting the search committee prepared, what you don't want on a search committee are insecure administrators and angry teachers. Because the insecure administrators will try to stop anybody who poses a threat to them. And the teachers are going to want somebody who's union-friendly or favorably disposed to teachers. And sometimes a strategy that we have encountered is that they do from time to time attempt to bully the other members of the search committee with theatrical indignance, emotional pressure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Probably more than you asked for, I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Kuchar? On this side or this side? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
So let us know
for
whatever
coming.
you want to do moving forward, any assistance that you may require, any initial steps, preliminary steps that you want to continue to take. And as I say, we value your membership more than we want your money for a superintendent search. So what we want is for the district to be successful and happy moving forward. My first visit to Southbridge was 14 years ago. Not that I want to be here 14 years from now, but we're very grateful to Southbridge for their support for us, and we'd like to be supportive of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'd like to ask my fellow school committee members if they want to take a brief recess. We've been sitting for a little more than an hour and a half now, so. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I said yes, please.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So if we'd like to take a recess, can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. We're going to take, how about 10 minutes? 8:15. Come back, we'll resume the meeting. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Welcome back to the school committee meeting of April 14th, 2015. The time is 8:15. I note the presence of all school committee members on the dais, also the presence of our student representative, Mr. Boisvert, Mr. Osborne, and Ms. Stanton. And we will resume the agenda with agenda item number 7, reports. So representative of the Student Advisory Committee, Mr. Boisvert, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 15th, the National Honor Society will be holding its induction ceremony in the Southbridge Middle High School auditorium at 7 p.m. Light refreshments will be served in the cafe after the ceremony. The National Honor Society will hold its second annual spring car wash May 9th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Uno restaurant in Southbridge. The price is $5 and all proceeds go to the charity and National Honor Society scholarships. As a part of the fundraiser, Uno Restaurant will host a dough raiser. For each patron who presents a dough raiser coupon, Uno's will donate up to 20% of proceeds to the National Honor Society. On Thursday, May 14th, National Honor Society will be hosting its third annual spaghetti shebang in the Southbridge Middle High School cafeteria from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The price is $5 for an all-you-can-eat spaghetti supper. The event will include music, face painting, and raffles, including a membership package to the Hanover Theater, movie tickets to Cinemagic, and Red Sox memorabilia. After the supper, support Dr. Garcia and the Southbridge Middle High School band in their spring concert. Aspira will be holding its Somos Latinos event on Friday, April 17th at Trinity Catholic Academy from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Come learn about various Latino countries and their people, eat Latino cuisine, participate in a free salsa lesson, and more. Tickets are $5 for students and $7 for adults if purchased before the event, and $7 for students and $10 for adults if purchased at the door. Tickets can be purchased from Aspira members. This past week at Southbridge Middle High School, the Beauty and the Beast play was held in the Southbridge Middle High School auditorium. The musical was greatly praised and was one of the most attended plays in school history. Last week, the first Southbridge Middle High School Rotary Interact Club meeting was held. At this meeting, we went over the bylaws and held elections. The results of the elections are Caleb Blackmore won president, the vice president is Michaela O'Brien, the treasurer is Jake Boisvert, and the secretary is Caitlin Meckel. I would like to thank the Southbridge Middle High School staff for making sure that we knew what we were doing and that we were all safe and felt safe during the events that happened today at our school. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Boisvert. Where could members of the community pick up dough raiser coupons for the fundraiser?
While we are during the car wash, we'll be handing out the coupons for it, and if you go to Uno's, they'll give you them when you get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now to school committee reports. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Dr. Page?
No report at this time. Next meeting is tentatively scheduled for April 27th on Monday.
Okay, thank you for that. Negotiation and IBB Subcommittees, Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Both the SEIU negotiations and the IBB subcommittee negotiations with the teachers union are currently concluded. We are awaiting an MOA regarding both of those to be presented, and then ratification will soon follow. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Wellness Advisory Committee? Do you have an update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Wellness Advisory Committee met 2 weeks ago, I believe. And it was Maundy Thursday, whatever date that was, I apologize. And I have a letter that was put together to Superintendent Stanton on behalf of the Wellness Advisory Committee that I am going to read to you tonight. Dear Superintendent Stanton, as you are aware, last year the Wellness Advisory Committee worked to put together a youth risk behavior survey for the 7th through 10th grade students. The committee utilized the state YRBS and modified it to address the known and perceived behaviors of the students of Southbridge. After reviewing the YRBS data, the Wellness Advisory Committee discussed the results and have identified the following as priorities that need to be addressed by the Southbridge School District in the interest of the health, safety, and well-being of our students. They are as follows. There is a need for professional development regarding recognizing the signs of depression in students and when to refer to outside sources for assistance and support for students. 32.3% of middle school students reported symptoms of depression, and 13.6% had attempted suicide in the past year. The high school students, which again would be 9th and 10th graders reporting, 30.2% of the high school students reported symptoms of depression, and 13.4% reported suicide attempts. We've identified a need for a bicycle safety education at the elementary school level, as 57.7% of middle school students reported never wearing a bike helmet, and 9.4% rarely wearing a bike helmet. There is a need for a district-wide bullying prevention program and professional development for staff regarding bullying. Over half the middle school students reported being bullied on school property, and over 1/3 reported being cyberbullied. At the high school level, 21.7% of students reported being bullied on school property, and 16.3% reported being cyberbullied. There's also a need for a health teacher at the elementary level. Students are reported being sexually active before they had received any health classes. Some of the risky behaviors students are partaking in could be addressed by a health teacher teaching and reinforcing healthy choices at the elementary level. There's also a need for a teen pregnancy prevention program, one that educates parents regarding healthy relationships and sexual education. It was noted that Southbridge has the second highest rate of teen pregnancy in the state. We request that you address these priorities in the upcoming budget and as you schedule professional development for this and the upcoming year. Sincerely, the Wellness Advisory Committee. So that is what I have today. That is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What? Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, And Dr. Page?
Madam Chair, thank you. Through you, I just want to get a clarification. The number of students at both middle school and high school that said that they attempted suicide, is that 13%? That's, to me, is a very alarming figure.
It is.
And I just want to clarify, is the wording of the survey, was it, have you actually attempted to do this, or is it contemplated?
Yes, it was, I believe, attempted. There were different questions regarding thoughts of harming yourself. One of the things that, one of the other questions referred to students who might cut. So you've harmed yourself without attempting suicide versus the intent of your harming yourself was with the attempting to commit suicide.
Thank you.
The YRBS is up on the district website if parents have questions. Last year, things went home to the 7th through 10th graders regarding opting in or opting out of questions, kind of what it went, what questions, the whole survey was available to be looked at. So if anybody has questions regarding it, and I don't want people to be confused with the state YRBS versus our Southbridge YRBS. Some of the questions are different based on reports that members of the Wellness Advisory Committee had, nurses had different questions that they wanted asked of students because it had been reported or things that they had seen. So if you look on the DESE website, that's not the same information. We didn't participate in the state YRBS. Southbridge did their own youth risk behavior survey, and that is available on the district website. Thank you.
Ms. Conger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mrs. Quinney. Who currently sits on the Wellness Advisory Committee this year?
We have nurses from each of the schools. We have PE teachers from 2 of the buildings. We have community members, principals, going around the room. I don't want to say the names and then miss somebody, so I think that's pretty much.
Harrington Hospital, right?
Yeah, Harrington Hospital community members from U Inc., and parents, and there are students, though.
I just didn't know if it was the same as the previous year.
No, some of the members are the same. This Wellness Advisory Committee for this year is larger, although our meetings have not been as well attended.
Where are those minutes located for those meetings?
They should be on the website.
On our district website?
They should be.
Okay.
I can double check and make sure that they're there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Nope. On policy, there is no report. There's currently no meeting scheduled, but I need to work to schedule a meeting. We just kind of wanted the budget to take priority and focus on that. So we'll have to get together as a subcommittee and figure out what we'd like to do there. Next is the report of the Finance Director, Mr. Osborne.
Yes, I will roll my comments into item 8C, which is the copier lease contract.
Thank you.
Okay.
Report of the Superintendent, Ms. Stanton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first thing that I would like to discuss was the concern and the issue that was brought forward this morning. I will read the statement that was issued. April 14th, 2015. Dear parents, guardians, faculty, and staff, at approximately 9 a.m. today, a student issue was brought to the attention of the middle high school administration regarding an unknown suspicious package. Principal Earls immediately contacted Southbridge Police Department for assistance with the issue. The building was evacuated directly following the notification to the police department for safety reasons during the investigation. The Southbridge Police Department requested the assistance of the Massachusetts State Police on site of the incident. Both Southbridge Police Department and Massachusetts State Police requested additional time to continue their investigation in the building. Subsequently, a decision was made to dismiss students from the building and call AA transportation as well as parents and guardians for release. At approximately 11 a.m., police cleared the building and allowed staff members to re-enter to gain access to retrieve their belongings. I would like to take this time to thank the Southbridge Police Department, the Southbridge Fire Department, and the Massachusetts State Police for their quick response and assistance during this unusual emergency event. I cannot express enough my gratitude and appreciation of the administration, faculty, and staff in their proper handling of the situation and the assistance in keeping student safety of the utmost importance. To parents and guardians, I thank you for your understanding as the events unfolded and during our response time. We were unable to release any pertinent information concerning the investigation at the time of the incident, and we appreciate your assistance in ensuring the safety of your children during the dismissal and release of them from the building. Again, thank you to all who were involved. The next thing I would like to discuss is the quality school review that has been occurring at the middle high school. As part of our ongoing focus on raising student achievement in the Southbridge Public Schools, we have had several meetings throughout the year with input from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, school committee, district, and school administration, our plan managers and monitors, and our ILTs. We have been tirelessly working toward our AIP goals. In an effort to assess the strengths and needs of Southbridge Middle High School, we have been participating in a quality school review with SchoolWorks. The goal of the review is to collect evidence from a variety of stakeholders in an effort to understand the unique complexities of the school environment. For the Southbridge Public Schools, this information is critical as we revise our AIP and focus on addressing the needs of SMHS. Again, I'd like to say thank you to all the staff at SMHS as they have worked tirelessly to prepare and participate in the review. The review began on Monday and will continue through Wednesday. The review has included several focus groups of stakeholders, including students, staff, building, district administration, and school committee. In addition, classroom observations and document reviews are being conducted. It is our hope to have a deeper understanding of the strengths and the needs of SMHS in order to take actionable steps that lead to improved results in many areas of the school, including student achievement, suspension, attendance, school culture, and school climate. Again, thank you for your participation. Lastly, as part of the superintendent report, there is a notation for the Southbridge Education Foundation, and I didn't know if perhaps Mr. Latoy, if he attended, if he would be able to give a brief comment on the meeting. And I'm putting him on the spot, so thank you.
I did have the opportunity to attend the meeting. I believe it was one of the third or fourth meetings that they had this year. This is the first one that I was able to attend, and basically it's they're trying to get a group together to provide funding for alternative classroom and materials, I think, through small mini grants to each classroom, much like the Tantascwa has their TED, the foundation there. Bay Path has a similar foundation. Mark Morin was there from Bay Path. As a resident of Southbridge, he was talking about that as well. And so the goal is to get as many people involved in that as they can to try to move forward and gain community support for the schools and have mini grants available to teachers for things that aren't covered necessarily under the budget. They're looking for items and programs that they could provide to the teachers and to the students that really are outside of the norm of what the budget would be funding. In that realm, they're going to be putting together over the next month or two mini application and moving forward with that and setting up a nonprofit organization to collect money and donations and start having some fundraisers. We will be sending out information on when the next meeting is, inviting people to participate as well, trying to get staff involved in it, parents involved in it, any community members. It was great to see the community members that were there and the positive things that they had to say about the changes that they've seen and the direction that they'd like the school to go in.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the superintendent? Anything? Mrs. Donovan?
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Relative to the incident for today, is school all set for tomorrow?
Yes, school is set for a regular opening.
Okay.
And there are plans in place. Sure, Principal Earls, did you want to come up and speak a little bit about? how students will enter and...
Thank you for that opportunity for folks who might be watching. We did just send out staff notices about tomorrow morning. We are going to gather the students in their usual holding locations, which means the cafeteria, the auditorium, and the gymnasium. We will hold those students. One of the assistant principals is getting materials ready now to close off the academic wings to make sure students aren't allowed back into the academic areas before we release them. Staff will be in the academic areas first, in front of locked doors where students' belongings were left today in the middle of the evacuation. We will release the students verbally, not with the bell, but verbally, to enter the academic wings. They can proceed directly to the location where they left their belongings this morning, and then we will again verbally release them to their period 1 class. The teachers in those rooms will be instructed to hold the belongings until members of administration can gather any belongings of students who do not report tomorrow, so that we have them all in safe locations. And the investigation will continue tomorrow.
The other question I had, I know that some of the students were participating in ANET testing today.
Yes.
And I don't know if they were able to finish, and if they were not, will that testing continue tomorrow as well as planned for perhaps your 7th graders?
Yes, we did consult with the academic leadership team, and we are going to continue ANET testing through Friday.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, we're moving on to agenda item number 8, school committee actions. This would be a vote to approve the Southbridge Public School calendar for the 2015-2016 school year. Just as a reminder, this committee adopted policy BEDF recently, and something that the public may notice is that votes will now be taken by voice or hand count. Hand count might be easier initially to manage. If the vote is unanimous, that's how it would be recorded in the minutes. And the one exception is that any member may require or request a roll call vote for any item on the agenda. So if you do want that, just say, Madam Chair, I request the roll call, and we'll make sure we do that. That's going to be a little different, take us a little bit of time to get used to, but eventually the goal is to speed things up and make us more efficient. So, just as a reminder. So now we are on, vote to approve the Southbridge Public School 2015-2016 calendar. Is this?
Those are the concerns.
Oh, okay. Yes. You're going to speak to them?
Yes.
Okay.
So the calendar was shared with staff, and we do have some concerns. So I would like to ask that we have some time, I think, to review some of those concerns. I do believe there is some question regarding the open house that's scheduled the night before Veterans Day that we may want to take a consideration to that evening. And then there are also some other concerns regarding the open house, which we had much discussion regarding the potential to move that to the beginning of the school year, and some suggestions about instead of the professional development days, where classrooms might not be set up yet, if we might consider doing it the first week of school. So there are some considerations, I think, to have, whether we want to have the discussion before we vote, or come back with a revised calendar.
Madam Chair, is the superintendent asking to have more time and bring this
You're
back?
requesting an extension?
I believe so. I think the concerns are significant.
Okay, so I'll move that. Second.
Okay. Move to postpone?
Till the next.
To the next meeting. Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Abrahamson. We have a second by Dr. Page. Is there any further discussion? Show of hands, all in favor? That's unanimous of all present. Thank you for that. The next would be to vote to approve the Southbridge Public School 2015-2016 budget as presented by Ms. Stanton earlier this evening.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Abrahamson, a second by Mrs. Quinney. Is there any discussion relative to the budget? Seeing none, Yeah, Mr. Abrahamson?
No.
You're ahead of me.
Right.
Did you have a question?
I did have a
I'm sorry,
question.
Mrs. Donovan.
I wasn't sure, do we need to specifically state a number?
I would, for the motion, I
So
would.
perhaps the person that made the motion would like to follow up with the exact number, which may be on the back of page 14, last slide.
$28,255,846. Did I say that?
Move that we accept the superintendent's budget as presented in the amount of $28,255,846.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mrs. Quinney. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you. I was going to say something at members' forum, but seeing that it's here, I think it's still relevant. Obviously, this number is a lot higher than it has been in the past, and I just wanted to say that even though it is higher, that I strongly support this budget because it is a needs-based budget, and we're not going to be able to carry on and be who we want to be if we stay where we are. And we cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Our schools have been severely affected by low dollars being put into our budget. And tonight, the evidence, as always, is very clear that that we have very high need students, and our subgroups desperately need support. And like Dr. Page said after listening to the results of the survey for Mrs. Quinney, obviously our kids desperately need social behavioral supports as well. There is no fringe extras here. This is what we need to move on. A lot of people in the town, as well as the town council, keep saying, well, how are we going to get out of letter 4? What do you need? What do you need? You need this, you need that. We want you to do better. Well, we can't do better without the necessary funding to do what we need. So the town council may say, well, it's nice that you want this, but you're not going to get it. Perhaps they'll meet us halfway. I don't know what they'll do. However, I just want it to go on the record that I fully support this needs-based budget. I am advocating for the kids in the school district. This is what they desperately need. And we're not going to be able to give them what they need or to do the turnaround work that is required without a full commitment and a full investment from our town. And I desperately ask whoever will have the final say in this to think that over and do the right thing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To build on what Mrs. Donovan said, I think as a school committee, we are charged with doing what is in the best interest of students, and this budget meets students and their needs where they're at. We can hope and dream that we had students that don't have needs and aren't struggling and don't have challenges, but that's not the reality in which we live. So we need to advocate for our students where they are and how to get them the education and the services that they need in order for them to be successful. So based on that, I think there's been talk that we're asking for too much or we're changed numbers. This is the number that, based on the school committee's goals that as were discussed by Ms. Stanton earlier tonight, what we value as a school committee are students, and our students have needs and we need to meet them, and I think this budget reflects a comprehensive way to address the needs in our district. And if we're not going to advocate for our kids as school committee members, then I don't think we should be sitting up here. What the needs are what the needs are, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to state what they are. We know that we have issues and problems in our district, but we need solutions. And I think one of the ways to close those gaps, to move us forward, is to put together a budget that meets kids' needs where they're at in order to support them fully and get them the education that they deserve. And I think, quite frankly, that our kids deserve this and a whole lot more. And this is a good first step. I also wanted to speak to the fact that, as I'm sure you're all aware, the town council voted not to levy the 2.5% property tax, which was about $871,846. So that's been taken out of the town budget and it's not available. And I just wanted people to think about what that would mean, almost $1 million to kids in this district. And I know that there's been an argument made that we overtax. I saw something on Boston.com that I think we have the 17th lowest property tax in all of the state of Massachusetts, which given the 351 communities, I don't think that that's terribly awful. And based on an average single home value of $158,000, that this 2.5% would translate to those property owners as $153.16 a year. And I understand that people live on fixed incomes. Some people's property values are higher than that. Some people's property values are lower than that. But to ask a community to step forward and say, you are worth $153.16, I don't think is asking a lot of a family. And maybe you don't have kids in the school, or maybe your kids have gone through the school, or maybe your kids go to private school, and this isn't important to you in this moment. But this is important to our community, to moving our community forward. Mr. Kuchar spoke about having businesses in town and having a base, an economic base in your community. Nobody is going to move into our community if we continue to be level 4 or we transition to level 5. That is not a desirable community. And I value very much the hard work that the fire department and the DPW and the police department do. And I think they do a tremendous job, and I value that greatly. However, people don't move into communities for the police department, the fire department, and the DPW. Lots of people have been moving to Woodstock. They don't have a police department or a fire department, but they have really good schools, and they have a community that invests in schools and values education, and that is a draw for families. I think we have phenomenal resources that Woodstock doesn't have to offer. We have a tremendous police department, a tremendous fire department, fantastic services in this community, free trash pickup. We've got a lot of great things, but we do not have a community that is invested in our students and their education. And I think if we continue to move forward as a community that doesn't value that, our property base, tax base is going to continue to decrease because people are going to continue to move. Our school choice numbers are going to go up because people are going to opt to send their kids to communities that value their students and that value education. So I would put forth that $153.16 per family per year is not a gigantic commitment above what we've already, what the town has already approved for a budget. And I think that $871,846 doesn't meet our kids where they're at. But to take that off the table, I think, is catastrophic, and it sends a really clear message about what we value. And I think the 20 million, whatever the number was, budget is where we're at, what our kids need in this moment, and I don't think it's anywhere close to what they deserve, because I think they deserve a lot more, but this is where we're at, and I completely support the budget where it is, and I think I would ask the community and people that are proud to be from Southbridge to show everybody around what we value. I think we're going to get a superintendent or a town manager if we're a community that doesn't value our students, one of our most vulnerable populations. I don't think we send a message that reflects who we are as a community if that's what we choose to do. So, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Congdon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also just wanted to say, in regards to the budget, I would just hope that the superintendent might be able to put this presentation of the budget up on the website. I just wanted to tell the community that this budget is very transparent, that anybody can look at this budget and see exactly where the needs are of our district, see the cost of the needs, but mainly, it's all about giving the children of this community what they need and deserve. And I think every child in this community deserves an excellent education, and we can't continue to nickel and dime the students. I know I spoke on this at the EHS meeting, and the fact that you can't put a price on our children's education. All of these children in this community deserve so much more than they're getting, and I think that with this $28,255,846, we can give the children in this community what they finally deserve and work on those pieces to get us out of level 4 and start to rebuild back the community and rebuild Southbridge and want people to come and move here and get a good education for their children. And I think that this budget shows where our deficiencies are and how we can meet them. And I just urge the town council to really do their homework, look at these numbers, and look at how they can support the children of their community and the families that they serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Paige? Did you want to say something? Yes.
I'm going to, I know we're trying to move on to a new format here, but I'm going to request a roll call vote for this.
Oh, okay. May I just speak first? You know, this is my third go-around with the budgets. This is the first year, though, that I would say that I'm actually proud to present a budget. And it seems extreme. We met with the Education and Human Services Subcommittee on April 1st, and we talked about, you know, what level funding would do, what a modest increase could do, because that's what we thought that maybe we should shoot for. That had been business as usual, trying to come to some, you know, little dinky compromise as we've done in years past. And it became apparent as we, as a school committee, got together on, I believe it was the 8th. It's unfortunate that that wasn't televised. It was a public meeting held at Cole Ave, and our meetings have been recorded in the past. This particular meeting wasn't, and it's almost too bad because I thought it was a really impressive meeting to talk about the goals and how to use the budget to directly achieve the goals that we want, not just to fill slots, not just to request money, but to request an opportunity to fully staff at the level that we need to staff, to fully provide the resources that we need to provide to students. So many of the votes that I've taken over 3 years have had to do with adults. So much of my time has been spent on adults. I really have felt like, you know, what have I done for the children in the district and the students and the work that's being done to support them. And yes, this seems like 11.98% seems like a tremendous increase. But really, if we back up and over the last few years had broken that up and given 4% above, 4% above, 4% above, that's where we'd be now. We can't continue to spend a percentage or 2% or 3% or 4% and hope to accomplish anything. One of the slides that Ms. Stanton showed was districts at a level 4, Salem being one, and I forgot what the other one is, and they have made a commitment to spend 21% above minimum net school spending on the schools in a direct effort to get them out, not just for the sake of spending money, but for the sake of allocating very specific resources to very specific areas of concern. And we've spent a long time tonight talking about subgroups. And that certainly is important. But all students will benefit from additions to our curriculum. All students will benefit from social and emotional supports in the schools. And so I am proud that this committee unanimously voted to bring this forward and tonight, and that it's up for consideration again to move it forward. There are many steps left in this process. We recognize that. But I will speak for myself just saying that I have a responsibility to advocate. My children were entered the school system, the year it was declared underperforming by the state. I've said that a number of times. I was up at the podium arguing against the $1.5 million cut to the schools, trying to save 60 teachers' jobs, 55, 60 teachers' jobs at the time, saying, and directly, I hope, maybe we can find the tape, but I remember saying, if not publicly, then among the group of people that were trying to support an override back then, that if we didn't step up to the plate, a decade later, we would be here having the same conversation. It is exactly a decade later, we're having exactly the same conversation. And you know what? If we get 2% this year and 2% next year, a decade from now, we're going to be in the same situation. So I would just ask that that the town councilors consider that as leaders of this community, as owners, if you will, of the town's master plan, which discussed education extensively, that there be a commitment to move the district forward by providing additional resources to bring us above and beyond where we are. Thank you. Anything else? Any other discussion? Mr. Abrahamson's requested a roll call vote, please. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Lebo?
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
All yes?
Thank you very much. The next action is a vote to authorize the superintendent or director of finance to enter into a fair market value lease agreement with Rico USA not to exceed $5,900 per month for a term of 36 months for the purposes of upgrading 21 copiers to multifunction devices plus associated print management software. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Congdon. It's been seconded by Mr. Abrahamson. Is there any discussion? Would Mr. Osborne like to first?
I'll take questions. I won't, if anything comes up as a specific question.
Mrs. Congdon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Osborne. A couple of years ago, we had a presentation on, Rico came and presented to us. So
Right.
my question to you would be, will this take, and all of our contracts were all different years, 1 year, 3 year.
Yes.
Will this combine all of our contracts together to be one contract, or will there still be other existing contracts?
There will be a contract with Konica Minolta. We looked at those machines at the middle high school. They are newer, and the teacher who is using those as production machines for the print labs, those are still his favored machines. He's happy with them. He doesn't have any desire. The lease rate is amenable, and they are full-function devices. Our real big issue district-wide is we have a lot of devices that are just copiers. They aren't networked, they don't scan, they have no fax capabilities, and anyone can walk up and print copies on those. The devices we're interested in switching to are true multifunction devices. Every one of them will be fully networked. Every one of them will have full scan capability, user-level controls. Every one of our employees initially, we will not impose that upon staff this year, but the reason to roll it out now is to get them used to the devices, then move to either codes or cards, ID cards, that they can just tap on the machine and use. Many of the devices will also have fax boards, so these will replace the wildly obsolete fax machines that we are using that are incredibly expensive just to keep on. The power that they use is actually pretty significant. Yes?
So this will combine them all?
This will combine all
Except
of...
for the other one, which is
Yes.
the Konica Minolta Biz Hub?
Yes, there are some Rizzos that will be set off into the sunset for the most part. I think we may keep one at Eastford Road.
But no other contracts with Rizzo?
That contract actually ends in September, so we saw no reason to try to roll it. Aside from maybe one machine at Eastford Road, no one has a desire to keep these Rizzo machines. So we will talk about that. Within this, I talk about getting rid of at least 3 Rizzo machines of 5. I would like to get rid of all of them. We need to kind of see what Eastford Road is doing copies on construction paper on the Rizzo machines. They're not really very efficient for that purpose, so we're in talks about that. So there is an opportunity to eliminate more, but by and large, we will take a number of machines that are not on contract right now and put them on contract, put new machines on contract, on service contracts. So we have many machines that are costing us money in repairs on a regular basis and will only cost us more and more and more as they become older and more obsolete.
So my main concern is that we condensing these contracts.
Yes, we are condensing all of the RICO contracts plus some others.
Thank you.
So yes. I'm trying to be as open as possible with a few small items, but by and large, it will be one contract.
I just don't want to come back like we did 2 years ago and come back 2 years later to say, oh, well, all these contracts are out there and be where we are, like we were from 2 years ago. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Osborne. I was just curious about the service part of it. You just mentioned service contracts, obviously, but under RICO, will they, if there is an issue, do they come out and service the machines, or is that something separate?
Yes.
Is that service part of this dollar amount?
If you look in page 2, I break out an anticipated service cost. All copier service costs are based on a per printed page price, so there's no fixed amount for that. And in fact, we would like that service cost to go up a little bit, because that means that we are taking money off of little printers that cost about 10 times as much as this service contract. So on a per page basis, it is far more efficient for people to stop printing on small desktop printers. It's tenfold more efficient for them to stop printing on all of the small desktop printers. It's our hope that you see some very tangible costs in here. I have some intangible goals that we can reduce paper by $200 a month. We spend $40,000 or more a year on paper. I think we can curtail that by 10% through the use of these devices or more.
Yeah, one more thing. I'm just thinking, I know that there can sometimes be abuse of copying within the schools.
Right.
And so some of those machines do not keep track of actually how many pages are being printed. So I think that this, if we're doing things on a per page basis, and there's actually a counter there, that is something that we can finally get our hands on, and I appreciate that.
That information will be available at the user level. So when a user comes up and either enters their code or taps to print, that number of pages will be recorded for them. Our principals and our administrators will be able to view that. So if teacher A is printing 1,000 copies a month and teacher B is printing 50,000 pages a month, a principal can go talk to teacher B and say, do you realize you're printing this many copies? Right now, we don't have any of that control. We actually have a custodian who monitors paper at the middle high school on behalf of the principal. So it really is tedious, it's tiresome, and there's no accounting for who is making copies, where, when, and why.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anything else? Just want it noted that RICO was selected for this procurement through an evaluation of 3 prospective vendors who all had the opportunity to make presentations to a team of staff representing all the schools in central office. 3 vendors made proposals under valid 30B contracts and were thus compliant with mass procurement. RICO will utilize the state OFF 32 contract covering copiers, faxes, printers, multifunction devices.
Yes.
That was a question that had occurred, I think, a couple of years ago when we first did this. So thank you for providing that information.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? No. We're going to vote now to authorize the superintendent or director of finance to enter into a fair market value lease agreement as previously stated.
We don't need a roll call, right?
Nope. Show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3. It's unanimous. Thank you. Next is agenda item 8D, vote to offer school choice slots in the Southbridge Public School System for the 2015-2016 school year as presented in the school choice available acceptance spreadsheet.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Stanton, did you want to say anything? Or?
Just to answer questions?
Okay. Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Stanton. In looking at the school choice available seats for the 2015-2016 school year, there seems to be some wildly different numbers from building to building, and in some cases from grade to grade. Can you just quickly speak to that?
Sure, I can quickly speak to that. Typically, what happens is the request goes to the building principals. They analyze their staff at the grade levels and where they anticipate that they can assume additional seats into classrooms without affecting the overall quality of the classrooms. So that's why you potentially have a large grade 1 where they can't accept any students in because the classes are either at capacity or getting close to capacity. So they want to have some flexibility, but we do have some grade levels that are lower, in which case there is a potential for there to be seats available for students.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, show of hands to, thank you. That's unanimous as well. And finally, under school committee actions, 8E, vote to approve a special education educational assistant tier 3 position at Southbridge Middle High School. We have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Abrahamson, seconded by Mrs. Quinney. And did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can. I believe that there's a memo in your packets from Director Culligan regarding this request. It does alleviate a student-teacher ratio issue for one of our special education programs. It offers us the ability to do some inclusion support for students who need additional support as they travel in and out of classrooms in transition times.
Where might the funding for this? Where's the funding for this position? Funding? Funding for this position?
It is not a funded position. With really only 2 months left in the school year, we're not looking at that costing a tremendous amount. I think we can find the funds for that.
My discussion or my thought process would be salaries are trending to the positive, and that we would be able to encumber it through the salary.
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the superintendent and/or finance director. Are you looking to hire a temporary position for this to get through this year, or are you going to make a permanent hire that then will impact years to come? And given the fact that we don't have an approved budget at the moment,
yes,
I'm wondering if that's a wise decision to make a permanent hire, or if maybe it makes sense to try and do something temporary to fill the need for this year at this time.
It's a good point. We can certainly move to do a temporary position. The position was intended to be permanent in that the numbers, not only currently, but projected numbers for next year are indicating that we would need the position.
The memo does state in the last line, though, in order to maintain IEP compliance in a specialized classroom, an additional EA position will be required to fulfill the need until the end of the current fiscal year. So.
Does the superintendent see any possible situation in which that would change for the next school year? In other words, would that person not be needed in the next school year?
Well, special education is always very interesting. It's always being analyzed, particularly special education staff work in an environment where they can be moved based on student need. So it could potentially be that we have students leave the district or students come into the district, and so we analyze that regularly.
There would not be, though, a need for fewer educational assistants?
For the most part,
you could say.
Correct, yes.
Based on the trend.
Correct.
It would hardly seem.
I just hate to never say never.
Oh, right, I know, I understand that, but, so Madam Chair, I think that I think the motion stands as, you know.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Stanton, I just had a question. Do you know if you brought up that last sentence about to maintain IEP compliance. Is this something that we have no choice on anyway, because there is a required need for somebody to have this one-on-one support? And therefore, the vote is almost moot in some sense, because we are mandated or obligated to fulfill that compliance issue.
Correct, it's not a one-to-one issue, but yes, we have a compliance issue.
Okay, thank you.
And again, to speak to some of the decisions that have been made prior, you know, the idea that we can pull from these other places to make this happen will create a deficit in another area in order to make it happen. So the decision really was, it's a short remainder of the school year at this point, and it does fill a significant need.
And I just had one more question. Probably through you to Mr. Osborne. Do we have any idea of what the salary would be for that position?
I typically budget an annualized salary for EAs at about $25,000. I just quickly looked, there's 1/5 of the year left, so, I think we're looking at under $5,000 for the remainder of this year for this position.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Lebo?
So through you, Madam Chair, so are we making our vote on the way it's stated in the letter from Mrs. Stanton, 2014, until the end of the current 2014-2015 fiscal year?
That's kind of what we're discussing right now. Right now, the vote or the motion was kind of an open-ended vote to approve a special educational assistant tier 3 position. That motion could be amended. It could be left open, which makes it permanent until the need or it can be reassessed, that sort of a thing. Dr. Page?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, I guess my position on this is I'm pretty sure there is a need and probably is an ongoing need. However, I think it would be irresponsible for us to vote to add a new permanent unbudgeted position now when we don't have an approved budget with this position in it for next year going forward. So my recommendation would be that we amend the motion such that we approve the addition of the position as is written in the memo to satisfy the need through the end of this year in hopes that we'll be able to secure that position for next year going forward.
And I'll second that.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion by Dr. Page to amend the main motion to read, vote to approve the special educational assistant tier 3 position at Southbridge Middle High School until the end of the current 2014-2015 fiscal year. That has been seconded by Mr. Levo. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're going to, all in favor of the amendment, show of hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. Now we can return to the main motion as amended for a vote. Did you have something?
I did.
Mrs. Collins?
I know that during the budget I had mentioned the program, and I was just looking that educational assistant was moved 3 months ago because of the levels at the middle school beginning to rise for new referrals into the program. Safety is a main concern in compliance, and in the future I just hope that we can have and continue these communications of these positions that arise based on the needs that arise, because safety is the main concern of all the students in the district, and I wouldn't want to wait any amount of time to to be out of compliance in regards to the needs of the students. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the main motion as amended? Seeing none, show of hands to support and that's unanimous as well. Thank you for that. Unfinished business, the superintendent search. Just briefly, tonight we had a presentation by MASC. Mr. Kuchar left, he kind of evaporated right after the presentation. I wanted to thank him and speak to him about, potentially coming back to see us or whatever we might need from him. They've been very generous about offering their support, whether or not we select them as the group going forward. But I wanted to just let this committee know that I had some back and forth attempts to get in touch with the other company, and through a series of circumstances, we've agreed to speak tomorrow. So I will be speaking with them to see if they continue to be interested in coming. Tentatively, there was a May 12th date, but what I'm going to communicate with them is that we heard from Mr. Kuchar this evening, see if there's any way to speed them coming to see us sooner so that we can kind of make some decisions that we have to make. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I will be speaking tomorrow to them. So have an update for sure at the next meeting. The next regular school committee meeting will be held on, oh, I'm sorry.
Can I talk under that?
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to yourself. Superintendent search. I know Mr. Kuchar talked that the chair could work with MASC to create a community survey in regards to the superintendent search, and I would just like to maybe authorize you to start those conversations in regards to starting that survey and seeing what the needs and thoughts of the community, faculty, and students were. I know at a previous meeting, Mrs. Quinney had brought up the fact of polling the faculty, and I just think that would be a great idea, and if he's offering that service through MASC at no cost to the district, I think that would be great to just see what the community, faculty, and students think.
Give us a head start for sure.
Second.
So, is that a formal motion?
So I will make a motion to recommend that the chair work with MASC to create a community survey in regards to the superintendent search.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Show of hands. That's unanimous as well. I will begin working on that. I probably anticipate I would need some input even on that process, so we'll decide how we want to move that forward. I can speak to Glenn and Dorothy about that. Thank you very much. New business. The next regular school committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 28th, 2015, 7 p.m. in council chambers. I believe there will be a quarterly report. DESI's quarterly report will be that day. And now we move to member forum. Are there any members who would like to speak this evening? Mr. Olivo?
As a parent of 2 children at the San Marcos High School, I want to go on record and applaud the efforts of the principal, her staff, the faculty, the first responders, the Southbridge Police Department, Fire Department, and the state troopers as well. Their efforts were flawless. I think that the safety of our students was their #1 concern, and I am, as a trained first responder as well, I was just really amazed at how fast everything unfolded and how fast the building was returned and how fast our students were evacuated. Their safety was the #1 concern, and I, again, applaud their efforts. Thank you very much for taking my children and the rest of the children of this community lives and making them as if they were your own. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mrs. Congdon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the superintendent, just a question that arose yesterday from a parent and I couldn't answer. When is the last day of school?
I thought I answered that in an email.
Oh, I never got it back.
I believe, but please don't quote me, I believe it's the 23rd. I'm getting a lot of yes.
That's what I thought.
So can I say it's the 23rd?
That's what I thought.
Okay,
Tuesday.
all right, it's the 23rd.
Could we also maybe post that on the
Yes.
website?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
And we are beyond the moment in the calendar where any emergency, weather-related or other, would require us to make up that day. So we can formally announce the last day of school.
Thank you. And just 2 other points. I know Mr. Boisvert mentioned it, the Beauty and the Beast show. I happened to attend on Friday night with my family, and I saw other committee members there as well. That was, the other shows in all the schools have been wonderful, but this Beauty and the Beast show was absolutely amazing. My son, who was 6, said, that was the best show I've ever been to, and to get him to sit through anything is a challenge. But just the way that parents and staff and students and just members of the community came together to put on that presentation was amazing. We got there and the line for tickets was about 20 to 25 minutes long. People were out the door waiting just to buy tickets to go to that show. They ran out of programs, which they gave everybody a program at intermission, but it was just so wonderful to see for that first performance of Beauty and the Beast, so many people in the community there supporting the students, and those students put on a really good play. And I'm hoping, I know they videotaped it, I'm hoping that they'll be able to show that on the cable access channel, because everybody in this community should just see the talent at that school and the talent of the students that we have in this community. And lastly, I just also wanted to say that different schools work really hard to keep the pages of the district updated, Eastford Road, West Street, Charlton Street, and the middle school, high school. So if parents do have questions on what dates, just go on to the school district website calendar and each school's calendar to see the different events that are occurring and to go out and support those events. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's been a lot of discussion about safety today, and I just wanted to take a moment for people in the community that don't know, that are under the impression that random people in the community that post things on social media know what they're talking about and take that at face value. I just wanted to read to you the Southbridge Police Department.
That's what I was going to do.
Facebook post regarding today. I think it clarifies a lot of the things that have been discussed if you weren't aware of them. So this is the Southbridge Police Department. 5 hours ago, they posted, due to the discrepancies reported on social media outlets, the Southbridge Police would like, the public to know the following facts. On April 14th, 2015 at 9 a.m., the Southbridge Police responded to the Southbridge Middle High School for a suspicious device found on a student. As a precaution, the school was evacuated and the Massachusetts State Police Bomb Squad was called to the scene. The device was rendered safe and determined to be non-explosive. Due to the lengthened time of the investigation, the students were dismissed from school. The building was determined safe and released back to the school department at 11:30 a.m. The criminal investigation into this matter is ongoing at this time. So that sums up what happened today at Southbridge Middle High School, and as many people have already stated, I would like to thank all the district staff that whose first and foremost priority was the safety of students. I think that some people wish that they had had information sooner rather than when they got it, but I would say in choosing to keep your child safe, or choosing to tell you how they were keeping your child safe, I think the district clearly chose to keep your child safe as their priority and then inform you later. I think we'd all like instantaneous information to come to us, but the reality is things need to be prioritized, and the safety of our students was clearly the priority, and I want to thank everyone who had a hand in that through the whole process and then the information that then came out afterwards. So thank you for that. That is all.
Mr. Abrams?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I won't be long, but I want to echo some of that, but perhaps in a different way. Being the old codger that I am, I remember years ago when people did things routinely. Monday was wash day, for example, and after washing day, people would go out and hang the clothes in the yard. And invariably, someone would see someone on the other side of the fence, and they would talk. And they would say, do you know what I heard about so-and-so? And, these words went to the air, and they were fairly, everyone likes good, juicy gossip, I suppose. And then later on, some of you probably, well, I don't know, I say probably remember, maybe you don't, but we used to have telephone party lines. And there were more people, you would share a telephone line with someone else, okay? And you might pick up the phone, and there were people talking. And if you were quiet, you could probably hear some other gossip. But if we go to the technological advancements we have today, it is not just something innocuous said that goes in the air. When people post on these social media sites. There are people who post either with their real names, not with their real names, but they're saying, you know what I heard? And then someone's going to say, oh yeah, I heard that too. And to the extent that people either host that type of site without overseeing it, and the extent to which people participate in that kind of site, if we have a panic, if we have a tragedy because these people have speculated online, which goes around the world, they must take responsibility for what they are doing and what they are posting online. We had much information about this episode, and everyone wants to scoop somebody else. I'm in the know. Well, you know, a lot of those people aren't in the know. They just think they are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything else here? Anything? I guess this is going to be very redundant. First of all, regarding Beauty and the Beast musical, that was a tremendous, tremendous event for the school and the community. The amount of work that went into that show, I always think about Thanksgiving and all the work and the preparation that goes into the show, and then it's over and done in a flash. And I said that to a couple of people that worked on the musical, and we were kind of joking about it, but the hours that staff volunteered their time was amazing. The set, the parents that volunteered, the students that came in on weekends, that worked, the musical, the people that participated in the orchestra. I looked down and it was all faculty that volunteered, and one student, Conrad, who volunteered their time to be there for those shows. That they weren't short shows either. They were 3-hour shows, and they did 3 of them over a 2-day period of time. That really actually got me emotional. I thought that was incredible to watch that. And so thank you to everybody who participated, to the students, the staff, the parents, the faculty, the community, everybody that came together. If everything ran like that, I cannot imagine where we would be. So thank you for everybody's efforts. And also regarding today's events, I really can't add too much to what was said, other than the fact that I purposely did not go on Facebook today because I knew what would be on Facebook today if I went there, and I ended up, I did see later in the afternoon, Mrs. Quinney notified me that the Southbridge Police Department had posted something, and I was interested to see that. And there was misinformation that was out there, and one of the criticisms that I did see was that the initial all-call that went out to parents almost instantaneously was, due to unforeseen circumstances, we're going to be evacuating the building. And some parents are like, unforeseen circumstances, that's not telling us anything. Well, it was an unfolding situation without all of the facts. The police hadn't had an opportunity to weigh in. You know, you didn't know what you were dealing with. Was the alternative to say, oh my God, there's been a horrible thing at the school? That would have incited panic among people. There was no need for panic. People were safe. The administration followed protocol very well. The superintendent, this was her first experience of this nature. I think she handled herself very well. I think top to bottom it was handled very well, and I do appreciate everybody's efforts both inside the district and externally for that. And I would just caution people, again, the big thing is that we have some huge cover-up. We're hiding everything. We don't want anybody to know anything. And I will just tell you that, as usual, that was actually not the case. There was a lot of thought going into what was happening at the time, primarily the thought being, let's get the students safe, let's get them safe outside the building, let's get them safe home. So thank you to everybody for that. And there could be an executive session tonight if we vote one. So if anybody wants to vote for an executive session, well, I'm sorry, was there anything else? I'm sorry. Okay. An executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining or litigation position, and the chair so declares. I do so declare. The purpose of that would be for potential litigation, interest-based bargaining regarding the Southbridge Education Association and the Service Employees International Union, Local 888. Also pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel and to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel to specifically discuss the Director of Finance contract and the Supervisor of Maintenance and Facilities contract. If anybody would like to make the motion, they can. If not, we can adjourn the meeting.
So moved. To adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I said second.
There's a second to adjourn.
Maybe not loud enough, but second.
Actually, can I have a show of hands, please? It's unanimous. We're adjourning. Thank you.